Okay, we're still here working on this, getting my R1 back together again. Started out with a changing of the tire. Remember that? We got that mounted and got a new bearing in there happening. Got that finished. Got that wrapped up. Well, I got something here I want to show you about. I want to talk to you about. Okay, and it has to do with caliper, brake caliper maintenance on these bikes. All right, a lot of people are don't go here nowadays. They just buy new calipers. All right, and kind of like the same thing. I had a discussion yesterday about bearings, putting bearings in there with the neighbor. He stopped by to look at it. What you doing? And I was telling him about it, and he said, "Yeah." I said, "I kind of wondered what was going on there." And I said, "Yeah, you know," I said, "this is kind of a lost art." I said, "People nowadays they'll replace a back wheel with for new bearings. They'll just buy a new back wheel, you know, a few $100, and they're covered, or have a dealership mess with it all." But I'm one of these old guys that likes to tinker and stuff. Okay, if you look, this is kind of another one of my little tricks. Okay, that I do have done through the years. If you look carefully, what you're looking at here. Now I want to try to. Good grief! Try to do this with the one hand here. All right. So if you look carefully, let me see if I can find something to point with here. All right. Now I got the camera balanced on my knee, caliper hanging on by one finger. So hopefully this don't all come unglued here at one time on us. But if you look really carefully here, do you see? Let me get this thing right there. See that black spot right there? Well, that started out about 3/4 of the way around. This is the piston. This is the caliper. This is what happens when you pull on a brake lever or push on a brake pedal. Hydraulic pressure will push this piston out of this caliper, all right, and squeeze the brake pads. The brake pads will be laying across the face here of these pistons, all right. Well, over time, these pistons will get more and more exposed as the pads wear on your brakes, okay, and you'll get crud built up on these pistons, and that's kind of the remainder. I've been cleaning this for the last 15-20 minutes, and I thought, I'll show these guys this little trick, okay. You see that? There's still some right there. See it right there? That little bit of crud that's left on there. Now, like on my big ventures, on my big touring bikes and stuff, every time I change a tire, or change brake pads or whatever, I always do this maintenance. And what that does is it keeps that crud gets down inside of that caliper, between the caliper and the piston, and that crud gets down in there, and all of a sudden you got sticky pistons in the calipers. So when you press on your brake, they might get jerky, your brakes just don't feel quite so much, but they also can lock up, can cause brake drag, can cause the pads to drag on the rotors, and then they get hot and they can lock up. They cause all kinds of problems. And like I say, this is like just I enjoy doing this tinkering stuff. Okay, not everybody does, so some people would just, like I said, buy new calipers. So what I do is I take, I'll clean them up the best that I can with a rag or a brass brush. I got a little brass brush here laying here that you got to be careful. You don't want to scratch stuff, so you don't want to use steel, but see a brass brush, you can get that in there and clean it around a little bit and stuff. But ultimately what I end up doing is I'll end up just tearing up a rag, an old t-shirt or a rag. See, here's a piece of an old t-shirt. All right, you see that right there? I'll tear it into strips, and then I'm gonna put this camera down for a minute, just for a second, and I'll show you what I do here. I'll drape that strip through the caliper, and then wrap it around, get it wrapped around the piston. I'm doing that right now while you're waiting on me here, okay? And then I'll pinch the bottom of that, rag. Alright, now that's what I got. Just a minute here. I'm going to try to get this thing so you can see what I got going here. So you see right now I have this rag wrapped around that piston, alright? And I've got it pinched here in my fingers, okay? Now what that allows me to do now is then I'll take brake cleaner and I'll spray it on that rag so it saturates the rag real good, and then I'll do this. Then I'll rotate that back and forth and really clean those pistons up really well, okay? Now, alright, now I pull that out of there, and you can see here what I got in my hand, the loop that I got in my hand, okay? And then when it's all nice and clean, when all the black stuff is off and she's all polished up real nice, then I'll push that piston back in to the caliper again. Sometimes you can use your fingers. Other times, if you use channel locks, use one on one side and one on the other side and push it in nice and even. She'll go right back in there again. All right. Then you can pump out the other piston. All right, with your brake lever or whatever, or foot pedal in this case, and do the same thing with that one. Now, what you don't want to do is you don't want to compress. All right. First of all, you don't want to go extend these pistons out too far because they'll pop out, and then you got a real mess on your hands. Then you got to re-hydraulic up and get the fluid up, bleed the air out, and you might as well drop new seals in the caliper, and on and on and on. Doing it this way, by the way, doing what I'm talking about, I've had calipers go out to 300,000 miles plus, no problem. Never have to rebuild them. Never have to. They just go and go and go. But you got to keep them clean. Any dirt down in there between that seal and the piston, the seal in the caliper and the piston itself is going to wreak havoc. So it's something you just stay on top of. It's not that hard to do, and it brings them, and it gives you good, really nice brakes. Okay, so what you don't want to do is pull your pads off, and these pistons are exposed. You don't want to just grab them and push them in, okay? Because they'll be corroded. They'll be blackened with dirt and crud and stuff, and you'll be actually pushing that dirt and crud and stuff back down inside your caliper. You don't want to do that, okay? You don't do that. What you do is you just hold one piston, drive it out. I just drive them out a little more, maybe a 1/8 of an inch or so more than the width of a new pad, okay? Than the actual pad material on the new brake pad, the Kevlar or whatever your brake pads are made of. That width plus maybe a 1/16 or an 1/8 of an inch. Don't go too far. All right. And while you're doing that, you just hold one piston, pump the brake pedal out, push one out that far, and clean it really, really well, and then press it down. So now you're pressing good stuff. Then push your other piston out the rest of the way to that same distance, and scrub it up real good like I just showed you. Okay, then you can press that in. And now it's not a bad idea. I do this a lot on my touring bikes because they see a lot of miles. Like we play a lot on the Bonneville Salt Flats and in places, in rain, get in Utah dust. That I don't know if you guys ever. I'm sure that most of you touring riders out there love the desert like I do, and I don't know if you ever notice that dirt out like in Utah and places is more like talcum powder than it is actual dirt like we have in Michigan. We have black dirt and sand, okay, but not talcum powder. That stuff's like talcum powder. Well, you get that stuff so fine and can get down in there, you just but ironically, good maintenance on these things, and I enjoy it. Not a lot of people do, and I know that there are a lot of people that are opinionated. They're like, you're crazy, man. You can buy new calipers. Don't even fool with that stuff. Just when you When you swap them out, just swap out a back tire, swap out new calipers. You know, I'm cool with that. You know, but I personally, I like to tinker with this stuff. It's fun. So, well, I hope this helps somebody. Maybe it does. Hey, comment up, subscribe up, get out and ride. That's the most important thing. But get your brakes ready, because you got to stop sometime for ice cream or whatever. Okay. All right. Talk to you soon. Get out and ride.